wrap-up report. Mr. Kimpton.
Fortunately, I hadn't quite left my seat. I was in the process. Here we go. So this is a chance, we missed this opportunity in August, but I don't want to take advantage of it in September. There was a lot of things delivered on behalf of Aucklanders through your funding and your guidance and focus through Auckland Transport. So there's always plenty to celebrate, and there's always a number of frustrations, isn't there? So this is a chance for us to do a bit of a wrap up and talk about that, and you'll see the things that we want to touch on today, which is why I've got a team here with me. So we'll talk about some of the headlines. We'll talk about capital program. We want to touch on network optimisation. We know the importance of that. Bus priority and special vehicle lanes, safety, which we've already touched on, and fare changes. So as I look at delivering for Auckland, there's been a lot of progress made, and our reflections over the last 2 years, because if you just focus on the year itself, sometimes you miss the momentum. In a performance sense, you'll see our statement of intent we take very seriously alongside all the actions that go with that. Last year we delivered 18 of the 19. This year we delivered 19 of the 23. Where we've got departures, we understand what those are, and we've got actions plans in place to improve. That is up significantly on years gone by. So look, from a focus and a performance perspective, a lot to be proud of, and thank you for your funding and support. In terms of physical delivery on the ground, you'll see over the last 2 years a significant capital investment program. Last year was our biggest ever. We're delivering well over 90% in terms of that capital program. That actually puts Auckland Transport best in class. If you compare our capital delivery program and the value for money that sits the other side of that, because we have to deliver on the investment, we sit alongside or better than other agencies, government and local government. So you have an organisation very focused on giving ratepayers the return they are expecting from us through rates. I'll call out one example of that, level crossings. We celebrated a couple of weeks ago a level crossing removal program for Takanini and Glen Innes. 6 months ago, we had the idea with the Kiwi Rail block of line, the wheels-free block of line that you heard about earlier when Kiwi Rail was here. There was an opportunity of 4 weeks to do something at a fast pace that enabled level crossing removal in that location. In that 6 months, we verified that we could do it. We sought the funding, got the support of government and council for $815 million, and we will deliver something now starting in that period. 6 months for $815 million, a lot to be proud of. If I think about customer and community experience, we continue to lift across all measures. I just want to give you a couple of perspectives. Whilst our listen and respond measure rounded out annually, 32% compared to a target of 33%. The last quarter, Q4 measure, was 36%. So the trend is positive, the trend is good. 2 years ago, listens and response was 23%. So 2 years ago, in the fourth quarter, 23%. Q4, last financial year, 36%. If we road users, so we talk a lot about public transport users, but road users are a significant part of our customer base. Driver satisfaction, those that are surveyed, about their driving experience has gone over the last 2 years from 38% to 56%. At the same time, we've seen average travel time through arterials go down by over a minute, and we've seen the number of people moving through the corridor, which is you can get more, the more movement you've got through vehicles, more people, but more public transport down the same corridor. We've seen that go up significantly as well. So there's some really good things that are changing as a result of the focus on statement of intent and the funding that you've given us a lot to be proud of there. Yep. So this is just a reminder where we put our focus. So we put our focus on getting the basics right, community engagement, empowering of local boards, disruption comms, and revenue to reduce costs. So some really good things inside that. Can I just call them out? So the fixing potholes, we had our pothole promise. Arterial road, 95% fixed within 24 hours, achieved. The balance of within a week, that's across the local road network. So we get significantly less complaints around potholes. We are reducing cones. We clean up the cones, but we're also reducing the footprint and the duration that temporary traffic management is out. But if I can just make one appeal here, temporary traffic management, the signature of it is the cone, but the purpose of it is to make sure that in that workplace, people are safe and those driving by are safe. In the last 2 or 3 years, we've had 6 to 8 people either killed or seriously injured in temporary traffic management zones. That's not the workers themselves, that's the public driving past. So at least one each year is killed, and the balance are people that are seriously injured. So that's the public. In terms of the workers, the average, and I just did a quick scan of this, the average reported violence or threat or aggressive behaviour from the public to the people behind the cones is around about, I've written the number down, but I think it's probably at least a dozen, if not more, each year where we have a reportable event, okay? So people, there's road rage, there's anger, and we see that in public transport spaces, but we also see it in the road space, don't we? And it turns up on temporary traffic management sites. We've been focusing on all customers, so I shared the road service response, but we have also seen similar increases, just short of doubling across confidence in Auckland's around the public transport network. Empowering local boards, we went from 41% to 78% satisfaction or significant satisfaction. So these things are all coming together and they're meshing quite well. Revenue to reduce costs, our total operating budget, about a third of that comes from private user revenue. It's a mix of public transport fares, parking and infringements. So there's some good things in there. Right, results, you'll see some of the things there that you got for 1.3 billion of capital. Roads resurfaced and rehabilitated, that's a significant length. Next year even more, it's about 500 kilometres I think, Murray. We don't quite get to Wellington, but we're getting damn close to it. Electric bus replacement, that continues. For those that enjoy catching the bus, you'll appreciate them compared to the diesels. You'll see the electrification, increases in the rapid frequent network and continuing construction on CRL and Eastern Busway. So some really good work occurring there with your investment. Thank you. I've touched on some of these, so I'm not going to go back through them. I've talked about reduction in travel times through arterials at peak, down to 22.8 minutes. So we're seeing, whilst Auckland will continue to congest, we're working very hard to reduce that, and that's what that target's all about. We have a target, an internal objective of no 10-kilometre length of road, arterial length of road at peak should take you more than 20 minutes to travel along. And so that's our guiding light for the way that we think about all the things that occur in arterials. And the really big levers to get there are technology, getting disruption out of those corridors and increasing public transport. There's been some great wins also over the year. You'll see this one here. So we won the CIO Award, Excellence Award for the Contactless Payments project. That's acknowledgement of the great work the team's done. We also won last night the Public Sector Marketing Excellence Award for the Mix You Go program. That's acknowledgement by the peers across the industry of the impact of that program on changing attitudes and behaviour towards public transport. So there's some really, some excellent things in there that have been achieved through the year and by the team. I think I've just double clicked. Sorry, I think I went, yeah. We've already talked about the statement of intent achievements. I'm happy to take any questions on that. Can we go to the next slide? I think I might just do that
Yeah,
rather than me
because
trying to
we
click it.
do have this material and it's important for our wrap-up report that we have it.
Yep.
But yeah, if we can keep moving
Okay,
along.
and you'll see what's been achieved there. So we don't need to talk about that. We've already talked about it. Next slide. I might just get Murray to touch on some of these capital projects, and then we've got a few on network optimisation.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, just a few photos there of some of the things that we've achieved recently. So with the storm recovery program, some of the major projects we've completed. So the Manukau Heads Road, that was probably the largest slip on the whole network. That's now road reopened. And people will be pleased around the scenic drive work, which was a complex piece of work, but that section of road is also open for people in West Auckland. A number of you had the chance to run on the City Rail Link first train open to special passengers, and really good progress happening with the procurement of trains and the City Rail Link. Reeves Road flyover, Rahihi, ready to open. There'll be an opening ceremony on 26th of September and open to public from October, and that's 5 months ahead of schedule. Yeah, next slide. Great. Yeah, just looking ahead, we've done a lot of work on the unsealed road network with seal extensions. Yeah, maybe one more if we can. Yep, that one. So Araharua Road, there's a picture there, and I know those councillors who are in the rural parts of the network will be pleased to know that we're spending a lot of money on unsealed road improvements. The Rural Road Safety Program is also highlighted there with some work at Dairy Flat Highway, as also the cycling program, bottom right, with a lot of work happening around Glen Innes, but also we've started the Glen Innes to Tamaki cycleway and a number of other cycling projects across the city. And bottom left is the ferries, which are now being tested and commissioned on the water. So I'll leave it there.
Kia ora. I'm going to say a few words on network optimisation. This dashboard should be fairly familiar to councillors, but it's been a good year. We've achieved all of our targets and exceeded 3 of those targets. And that's important because, especially in special vehicle lanes and in our dynamic streets area, we've got a large programme going forward. The SOI target going forward is doubling the number of kilometres this year and then again. So we do need to make sure we're developing those designs as we go through. In particular, special vehicle lanes, at the beginning of the year, saw the development of the northwestern services, and to partner with that, Fred Taylor Drive and Triangle Road transit lanes were implemented, as were the transit lanes on Point Chev Road, and of course, as mentioned earlier, the Strand has opened recently, providing freight and transit lanes to the port. We've also seen an increase in use of technology, and it's an ongoing area that we're actually putting a lot of focus in over the year. Obviously this year we've had a lot of focus on Bus Booster, but next year we're also putting a lot more focus on those detection sites to improve how we operate the network and optimise it. And that includes running trials with our partners and FENS, but also making sure people can get to event sites much easier.
Next slide.
Next slide. Oh, gone. That's it. We have been asked to talk a little bit about special vehicle lanes. So the focus on bus priority on special vehicle lanes, just to give you a little bit of a comparative here, there's around 655 kilometres total length of the rapid transit network and frequent transit network on our network. We already have 184 kilometres of special vehicle lanes, whether they're transit lanes, freight lanes or bus lanes. And as I mentioned earlier, our SOI targets for the next 3 years are quite ambitious, 5 kilometres in the last year, doubling that this year to 10 kilometres and then 20 kilometres the following year. That said, we have a longer pipeline that we're investigating, and that's based around 138 kilometres we're looking at, and that's focused on both making sure that they're justifiable transit lanes, i.e. they have a number of buses running through them, but also they're already experiencing some congestion. The next few slides, which I'll just talk to this one, and there's a number of slides in the pack that councillors will see, which is basically focusing in on areas. So this is our overall map. So just to give you a little bit of a legend here, the solid lines are special vehicle lanes already in place. The dotted lines are planned for investigation or are planned on our programme. And just for clarity, especially on the next ones, there's a black line that says to be confirmed. That's because an investigation needs to happen to understand whether it's going to be a bus priority, a transit lane, or a combination of modes. So if we move forward a few slides. So we've got central areas, south and east, north and west. So special vehicle lane deliveries life cycle, we do a number of investigations, and that takes a variety of forms as going forward. We engage obviously with communities and through local boards, and some of those coming through can be fairly rapid, but we take time to focus on the communication and engagement phase with local communities, and we will look to support from councillors coming through the areas and from the local boards to progress those. These can be an area where we actually spend a lot more time, so although it says 3 to 9 months, can be quite variable as we work through any concerns or issues, questions raised by the community as we go through that process. And also just note there that technology, so we do invest quite heavily in technology, and especially for our enforcement area. We need that technology to make sure that we can maintain and operate the network effectively, make the most of those investments into special vehicle lanes. And those can be quite significant camera costs as well.
I'm going to take these next couple of slides as read. We've touched on safety already. That's road safety. The next slide is around rail safety. We wanted to track this, and we are constantly looking to respond and work with Kiwi Rail and our partners to reduce impact as well. It's also one of the reasons for the level crossing removal program. Next slide. That just gives you a feel for how we look at safety across the network and the things that we consider. Feel free to ask any questions on it. Next slide. And we're into the last couple here with Stacey on the fare review.
Thank you. It was a skip. I did want to point out a couple of things about the safety plan for public transport, because I know it's topical and I always get sort of questions around the table about what are we doing to address that. And so what you saw on the screen probably didn't necessarily give you what I would call the detail, what lies beneath it, but I'll just quickly run through a few of those things that are in there, and that is including real-time CCTV on board buses. And so that allows, if a bus driver needs help, that they can push a button, it goes immediately to the depot, they can live stream into the bus. So we've fitted 45 as a trial to see how it goes and its efficiency and effectiveness on that. We've got 337 buses now fitted with protection shields. That's growing by the day. We had to get another support for that in order to be able to escalate the volume that was being done, because it was too slow. So we brought in another company to try and support getting that done a bit quicker. We're progressing of what I call a guard trial on board a bus, and that helps our operators be more self-sufficient in terms of if their drivers are reporting a problem and we don't have the agility to respond to it, they can actually deploy them based on their need, right? So it's more of a partnership approach to make sure that we're deploying where the problems are. Data consolidation, working with police, is going really well. We had another meeting with them this week talking about that, allowing the data sets and actually the joint deployment model sort of going forth and how they can help with that. The nighttime experience, we're working on a number of bus routes and where we can potentially have the opportunity for a customer to say, can you get me closer to my stop, where it's viable to do in order to be able to shorten that first and last leg. It makes it more attractive as a service late at night. Body-worn cameras for train managers. Track my journey in the app gives parents a lot of confidence, just like you do in Uber. So adding that to our app so people can track their children and, you know, that level of confidence in knowing where they're at a particular time. Upgrading bus shelters, so circa 300 is what we're aiming for this year, so it's quite a lot in terms of that. And there's a bunch of other things there too, but we really wanted to make sure we had a proper plan that we can report back to everybody on, and so you'll get an update on that as the year goes ahead. In terms of the fare change review, obviously we introduced the 7-day cap, was introduced in July to provide cost certainty for public transport users and encourage more frequent usage from the existing customers. That coincided with our annual fare review after that, which what we did was we consolidated the zones to make it a lot easier to understand, but also for those that travelled the longer distances, that they had a capped fare and it was cheaper for them to be able to do those longer journeys to make public transport a more attractive option if you've got to travel further. That has gone really well in terms of the patronage trends with that. We've had a 2.4 increase in patronage in the full 2025 financial year, so it has slowed down. I want to talk a little bit more about that too if we have the time. And the impact of the 7-day fare cap itself, 62,479 unique hot cards have benefited from that. Yeah, and that equates to close to 1 million free journeys for people. So it has been really effective and given people that cost certainty. And actually, when we talk about fare box recovery, it's eroded that less than we anticipated. Yeah, which is good, and it's been successful with that. We also, during that time, you'll remember, we removed the off-peak fare cap. Now that proved like we thought it would. It hasn't actually materialised into any sort of detriment to it. If we go to the next slide, where's the clipper? Oh, next one, please. Fare change review, ferries. So with ferries, what we did was we decoupled the ferry fares, and so they sat independently from bus and train, and I know we talked about it this time, and that was due to obviously the significant increase in costs with ferry in terms of what it costs to operate a ferry than what it does a bus or a train. Ferry boardings from February to June 2025 did decline by 1%, or close to 1%, and proportionally lower actually compared to the decline that we saw across the other modes. That's the key point there with that. And actually we saw a huge increase in the outer harbour routes, which is probably also coincides with the fact that reliability was largely restored, which has supported people to travel with a bit more confidence with that. So there's a few things to sort of unpack there. Now the question will come, so what are we doing next? So there's a few things that we're looking at and costing with it we'll come back on. That includes extending that $50 cap. Can we make it broader? That's one option. We're also looking at doing a lot with the tertiary sector, and they only get a 20% discount. So where secondary students get a 40% discount. So we're sort of modelling what that would look like from tertiary to make it equitable for them as well in terms of that, to encourage obviously uplift of public transport, and they are high users as well, and we've seen a huge increase in that category this year, and we want to sort of continue that trend where you have good relationships with the tertiary institutes and sort of building a lot more interactions with them as well. The other things too is like a 3-day public transport pass, and working with conference organisers and that to be able to facilitate that. So when people come into Auckland, they've got something that they can use, enable them to get around the city easily, yeah, and it's a bit more intuitive. So a 3-day cap as well as a family pass. We know that for a lot of families, when they go on outings, cost is a huge consideration about whether we public transport or not, so making sure that we're looking at those options too. So there's a lot going on in terms of that. Fair share is going really well, and actually you'll find this really interesting. So we're up to about 58 businesses now, and what we've seen is before they were fair share versus where they are now, their uplift in public transport use has increased by 33%. Yeah, so for companies that use fair share, the employees are using it 33% more than what they did pre-fair share. And actually, those that have taken on a larger discount, their employees, PT use has increased 55%. So there are some good stats in terms of that proof point with fair share. Also doing a lot to enhance what I call the back-end model for businesses so that they can go in there, they can see how their people are travelling, they can see the offset in terms of carbon reduction as well with their people using sustainable modes, which is really helpful. I think that's all from me. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Dean, is there anything else you want to put to us before you answer questions?
No, thank you for the opportunity. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you. The first question we have is Councillor Ferry.
Kia ora. Thank you. So the two questions I had for this, one was about the SVL, the special vehicle lanes. Some of the maps you provided had black lines on them for, I can't remember the exact wording, I think it was unknown. Could you just talk a little bit more about that? It seems odd to me that we don't know, and in some cases these were maps, lines that were solid, so it implied they were already in place.
Certainly, I can answer that one. There shouldn't have been any black lines that were solid, so apologies if they were on the maps. We should alter those. The black lines that are dotted are the ones that we still need to do the investigation to understand whether they're a bus lane or a transit lane. Those investigations are still to happen, so we can define what type of special vehicle lane they'll be.
Okay, thank you. That makes sense. I just note that there are some solid ones. I've obviously paid more attention to the central map. Perhaps they are ones that should have been dotted, but one of them is some of Point Chev Road and then Tamaki Drive as well, the ones that sort of jumped out at me, but there are a couple of other ones as well. So it'd be good to get that confirmed, thanks. The other question I had was, I understand that there was a confidential paper that went to the board this week, I think, on the Western Line business case. Obviously you can't talk about whatever made it confidential, but I just wondered if you wouldn't mind giving a quick update on where things are up to with creating a business case to address those level crossings on the Western Line, please. I know that, and you've talked publicly before about those inner west ones being the next priority after the Southern Line ones that are currently under construction. So is there any update you can give in public about that? Thank you.
I suspect what I'm about to say I've said before, but at the headline level, we've been doing a lot of engagement with local boards and local communities around what the nature of the options are and the challenges are for each of the level crossings. As a matter of fact, there was a group of us from the executive team that did a tour yesterday of the Western Line just to have a look and make sure we really understood the challenges in local communities. As you would know, it is complex. There's been 100 years of developing communities around railway lines, and now we're trying to unpick some of that so that we can provide for frequent travel and safe crossing or cross passage. So where we're at with the business case is the board has reviewed. We need to get funding for a detailed business case, which is what we were considering. And that work will continue with each of our business partners, which includes Auckland Council, NZTA, and Kiwi Rail in particular. So we're going at it as fast as appropriate, I think would be the right word to use, and we'll keep you informed as we progress. But I'm notwithstanding that some might say that this should have been done decades ago, we've put real momentum in it, recognising how important this is as part of urban development, but also transport movement. So good direction, but plenty to go.
Thank you. And that's the Auckland's public transport system is littered with projects that should have been done decades ago, and I note that I think that's been one of the successes of amalgamation, is that we have been able to crack on with a number of those. So yeah, agree with your point there, Dean. And I appreciated the chance to have a conversation with staff about identifying key community groups there, around each of the level crossing areas and some of the local factors as well. So thank you, and looking forward to hearing more about that in due course. Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Newman was next, but I understand that he's had to pop up for a minute. Councillor Dalton, you are therefore next. Thanks.
Thank you. I just thank you for everything that you've done, and I'll never see you again here, but thank you for all of your support over the years. Two questions. One is around the SVL and specifically the bus lanes. When you do the analysis of the disbenefits, is that a little bit of a chicken and egg? You know, I'm looking at this, at where my area, and could really see a benefit on the face of it for somewhere like Roscommon Road to have a bus lane. What is the type of analysis that has taken place? Is it benefit for the user or more benefit around return of investment for Auckland Transport, Auckland Council?
Thank you. There is a number of parts to that assessment. Firstly, it's actually, in terms of value for money, obviously we need to do a business assessment, benefit to cost, make sure we're using our funding appropriately. But for that, we do a technical assessment to see, first of all, is the route congested? Is a buses in use or about to come in use? And what's the travel time impact that introducing a special vehicle lane would have? What would be potentially the disbenefits to all users as well? So it's an amalgam of those assessments as we go through. And we do that justification, that technical justification, so we can go out and speak to the community as well, because we want to make sure that we're only implementing special vehicle lanes where they're going to make the most value.
So would that mean that if a road like Roscommon Road isn't in there, that it's just around prioritisation and funding? So we'll get there one day.
Yeah, if that's required, the prioritisation is, as you said, there's a long list of kilometres that could potentially be used. Obviously, there's also whether a road can actually be usable for a special vehicle lane. You know, not all roads have enough capacity or width in terms of their size. But yes, most of the priority is about where are we already seeing congestion and need for that additional benefit for either a transit lane, a bus, or a freight lane in some circumstances.
Thank you. My second question is for you, Dean. The regional networks are approved by the governing body. We approved a regional cycle network. Where is there's a tension between it hitting a local board and a local board saying no, and therefore we get an inequity not only for the people living there but for the whole region. So will some more work be done on the veto of local boards? And I'm all for local boards having decision making, but when you've got a regional network, you can end up with these patches of suburbs that are not joined up to the local network, the regional network.
Good question. I also think as I look to potential changes in legislation, this will become quite a salient point for you to address as governing body. But putting that to one side for the minute, if I can talk about our current practice and how we try to manage the trade-offs and the discussion. So we, from Auckland Transport, I think one of our strengths is that we'll look at it as a network, an integrated network, and we're thinking about road hierarchies and, state highways and arterials and collector roads and local roads. We're thinking about public transport, how that moves through it, walking and cycling and pedestrians and all those elements, and how it fits together. And so we've got that model in mind when we think about movement, public transport and road user, private vehicle. And what we're also very aware of, and you put the challenge firmly down the table, is listen and respond to your communities and listen and respond to your local boards. So we've tried to build that voice and understand. And what I've found, interestingly enough, is, sometimes you get the veto, but actually with quality engagement the front end, we're more likely to land in the place we need to move and get the result we need to from a network perspective. Now, I can see some tensions coming up on special vehicle lanes, might be a good example. So a special vehicle lane is part of a regional network where you want to move people across the region from A to B. And a local board might have a great interest in local parking down the side of that road. That's a working example of where we're going to have the tension between regional movement and local parking issues. On those matters, we will come back to you and ask for your guidance, because actually you are the governing body. We will work very hard with those communities to help them understand what the benefits are of movement through the corridor, particularly on arterials versus parking on the arterials. We'll work through that. We'll look at alternatives. We'll look at mitigations. But that would be an example of one of those, that's right to the point of your question, isn't it? Who holds the veto? We will give you our quality advice. We're committed to movement, and if parking is a challenge, then we'll be looking at what the options are. Oniwa Road, and Council Hills knows this, would be a prime example of that. So how do you handle 24/7 clearways through what is currently as out of hours off-peak parking, okay? Those are some of the tensions we'll need to work with you. But if we can get both the local board and the governing body to align, we're more likely to get there with the public support. That's our objective.
Thank you. Anything further, Councillor Dalton? If not, I'll come to Councillor Bartley.
That's good timing, thank you. My question was about SVLs and the timing or socialisation of the benefits of it, of the idea of it, because it seems to me like when you do come to go to local board for a decision, they're not on board because they're scared of the community pushback. But if the community understood the reasons why you need that SVL, perhaps that would help change how the local board would vote. And I'm thinking of Mount Smart in particular, and the timing that the decision was around elections. Of course, people want to get re-elected, so they're not going to vote for something that could be potentially controversial.
Thank you, Councillor. And a very apt timing point. That's not the only local board that had concerns about consultation during the election period. Yes, we are undertaking more engagement with local boards at an earlier stage to highlight the issues that we are trying to address on those certain corridors that we've identified would have potential for special vehicle lanes. We are undertaking to work more engagement with communities to actually talk through those options and thoughts about what benefits could be brought through. But ultimately we do need to consult on a preferred or a number of options. And that's before we do that stage, we come to the local board for their views. And as you suggested there, some of the local boards have been concerned around going out to consultation before or just before an election period.
Yeah, probably more like marketing and, way before you get to that stage of having to go to the local board, just so communities have that awareness, just socialise the idea of this is why we're changing the road use.
Certainly, yes, we would take that on board, and we would like to do some more work in that area to raise awareness of what special vehicle lanes are and why we use them and how it would be potential. But take on board your comment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anything further?
I just, I've had a person killed walking in Onehunga to near where the bus station is, and a cyclist killed on Nielsen Street. So I'm wanting to see how we are responding when it doesn't seem to be a government priority, walking and cycling, pedestrian safety. And I do appreciate that I've already had a briefing with the team on what can be done for Onehunga in particular. But it's starting to happen a bit more now.
We're doing everything we can. The things that we've got control of with the budget we have, we're looking to allocate that for greatest impact on safety outcomes. We've just approved in response to the changes in speed rule, we've just developed a new local road safety approach. We will engage with communities to look at what are the interventions that can be done to enhance safety, of which speed reductions under the new rule would be one, but a range of other things. So we are looking very closely at how we enhance safety and safety outcomes, and targeting that at the places of greatest need across our networks. And that's what we, I guess, in inverted commas, control. And then we've got our influence program, which is back through the police, back through NZTA, back through education. So look, we're leaning on this as hard as we can, and it's constantly disappointing, and even more so that it was 611 DSI over the last 12 months. We agree, and we welcome your support and advocacy.
Oh yeah, you have it. And I caught the bus. I caught 4 buses yesterday to go to an event. It only cost me $2.80, very cheap, but it did take a while. But I mean, you know, if you had SVLs, of course the journey would be shorter. But I saw the safety. You know, the driver was behind the safety guard, and I saw the CCTV on the bus, like the little camera up there. So I just want to acknowledge all the efforts you're taking to make sure when people catch the bus or the train, they feel safe. So I appreciate your work there. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Newman is now back with us. Would you like to take the next call?
Thank you, Chair. Excuse me. Dean, my questions, I really want to acknowledge the fantastic work of the AT staff in relation to the level crossing removal and the grade separation work in Takanini. It has been, it will continue to be a real challenge, planning in that network and the consequential disruption that will take place. But the barrier arms are going to be down, obviously, during the peak for the CRL anyway, so the disruption is real. My question is in relation to the Great South Road. Your officers have been really candid about the need to increase the capacity of the Great South Road in response to the disruption that's taking place on the railway line. So just coming back to this whole issue of you know, getting more capacity out of the corridors, there has been talk about finally getting on top of and having to remove those cycleways and you know, the green painted cycleways and the on-street parking on the Great South Road in relation to that project. Are you in any position today to give any update as to how that work is, how that planning might be trending?
Mel will give you an update, Councillor.
Thank you. Yes, the investigations happening along Great South Road are, as you said, around the level crossing programme. We're aware the level crossing programme is going to take a while to construct, but with CRL coming in, we'd like to do as much as we can to optimise the network through there. There's recently, continuing engagement with the local board down there, looking at a number of improvements, including improvements at the intersections to increase capacity and turning capacity around there. And we're continuing to work to see if we can improve how we utilise the corridor, whether that be removal of some parking or whether we can accommodate any cycling in a different way through there. So we're still in the investigation and design stage for that, but we have listened to the local board, Papakura local board, and the team were down there fairly recently to talk to them and have their feedback on the proposed designs as they currently stand.
Okay. And my other question, and sorry if this appears a very local matter, but I'm very, very happy with the great progress at the Drury train station. There's a lot of good news in the transport space. Probably something that we probably don't talk about enough. But in relation to the rail, the station development, there is the consequential work that Auckland Transport needs to pick up in relation to connectivity and on the Great South Road. And I'm a little concerned because Kiwi Rail's work seems to be progressing at real pace, but I'm not sure if Auckland Transport is quite there yet in terms of the of its complementary upgrades and improvements at the Great South Road in Drury? Or am I wrong that everything's going to be okay? It's just coming up shortly, but there's walkability, there's kiss and ride, there's the bus station, etc. There's quite a bit to come, but is that going to come very shortly? And I shouldn't lose hope, or are we in danger of just slipping behind the Kiwi Rail timeframe?
Thank you, Councillor. It's a great question. We've been working closely with our partners NZTA and Kiwi Rail around the opening of the station. Waihoihoe Road and intersection with Great South Road is due to start construction towards the end of this year. That's a road of regional significance, so funded by NZTA with Auckland Transport helping with the design. That is progressing well. There is potential more work that will need to be done along Great South Road, that section between Waihoihoe and the motorway interchange, and we're working closely with NZTA to try and maximise what we can do through there. There's a lot of construction already happening through there with the works on the motorway, but also quite significant amount of development work happening around Drury Station. So there is a lot happening. We are keeping up to pace in terms of connecting to the Drury Station, but there'll still be ongoing works in that area, which will probably cause some congestion for a little while to come as the network develops around there.
Chair, look, thank you. Can I ask the officers to maybe catch up with me offline about that, because I would like to get an overview.
I think it's really good if you can catch up offline and make sure there's alignment on that. The following three questions, and then I would like to be able to conclude questions, are Councillor Sayers, Councillor Hills, and the Mayor, Wayne Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you very much for your presentation and update. I'm also acknowledging you, Richard, being in the room as Chair of Auckland Transport. Thank you for doing that and being here. A lot happening, a lot achieved, and a lot is very complex, which you've explained. And I think Councillor Dalton was kind of touching on the question I'd like to ask, because it is so complex, and with this change of legislation that's coming through, and I mean, I think Auckland Transport's really tried quite hard to help local boards be more empowered, make more decisions, particularly around their capital programs, right? But as we go into a new world, we're asking central government to give certainty and long-term agreement in terms of their transport alignment. And I just think potentially, we could run a risk where councillors as well as local board members the next term, if the legislation goes through and this amalgamation happens, that there could be political delays, and with every delay there becomes costs. And things go around about as you go back and consult, and we can see that already happening in certain examples within local boards, but it could escalate, including with councillors. So just I'm wondering if there's any learnings or any early thoughts about how we ensure a cohesive and the same objectives perhaps that we're seeking from central government in terms of that better alignment and long-term thinking around projects as we're trying to get them across the line. Have you got any initial thoughts there, Dean, or from anyone in your team?
Look, I do have thoughts on, in a brave new world, what we might design into that new operating model, but I think I should leave it to when we get to that point. Anything would be retrospective right now, so if I can hold off answering that question, but we're committed to making the next version of how transport outcomes is delivered to be as high performing as possible. We've got a contribution that we'll be wanting to make on that design, and look forward to that conversation at the right time.
The next question is Councillor Hills.
Kia ora, Chair, thank you. Questions on patronage. I mean, without being crude, it does look like the 7 million we're missing is the 7 million that we used to have on the rail, on the tracks. So are we hoping or expecting that you'll be still increasing marginally on bus and ferry, but you'll have that gap filled with the rail when it's actually open again? Because it does look like actually quite a clean 7 million difference.
Yeah, I mean, there's no doubt had a huge impact, right, in terms of that. But one of the interesting things too is metro train systems globally have recovered at a slower rate than what buses have, yeah? And it's just, I think it's largely, when you think about where the bulky patronage comes from train, it is from commuters, yeah? And so they're more affected by the work from home situation than what buses are, because a lot of people use buses for short journeys to the shops and things like that. Yeah, so it's quite a different offering, and that's why globally trains have recovered slower than what buses have. But Auckland's obviously doubled down in terms of disruption with trains. So yes, we expect to get that back. There's a couple of other things that are not necessarily obvious that digging into this week, such as we are having a lot of equipment failures with end-of-life assets. Yeah, and so BDCs on buses, the bus driver consoles, they're increasingly failing. So we have fast-tracked ordering some more of them to cover us through the period, but obviously we've been really, really limited in terms of what we can invest in terms of our ticketing infrastructure over the next period of time. So that is a 6% failure rate right now. So anybody, if you hear people say there's a smiley face on the, the validator, that is why, yeah? And so that does have an impact. Yeah, so there's a few different things as well. So bus is actually really busy, you know that, you're a bus user. I'm just wondering if we're capturing everything right now.
Yep, cool. And thank you for actually the August 17 changes, massive again right across the city. Like to have people are noticing those sudden increases, especially at night. On that, the frequent network and the work we did in 2016 to 18 on the new network, are we planning a bigger boost next term or earlier in the year to kind of remind people what's there, as well as the free kids weekends, the fact that you can get the bus to the ferry? This all happened in the last couple of years, 21. How we, because I was at a Devonport meeting last night and I mentioned that, and the amount of people who said the bus is free to the ferry, and they're driving around Devonport trying to find a park, whereas they could just get to the ferry. I just don't know how we get those messages, especially with the $50 fare cap. If you're using the weekend with your kids, you might be all free. How do we get that kind of message back out there, as opposed to just hard infrastructure, which is more expensive?
Yeah. No,
So, quick question on the comms.
I take the point. I think we probably do need to do a refresh on some of those core offerings. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
And last question, with the TERP, one of the big things we asked for was how do we combine small projects and renewals with upgrades? And I've seen it happening a little bit, but we're still kind of missing the ball on not repatronising the renewals money. But how do we zip those funds up so we're using one set of cones, one set of TMP? How are we going to make sure that we do that to save money and time?
There's a lot of work going in on that very question. We've got a National Forward Works for Your program, which is designed to bring all those that want to do work in the road space so they can see it together. We're taking a strong leadership role around getting ours into that so that others can then plan theirs to occur beforehand. We'll get to a point in the future where once we've gone through and rebuilt and resurfaced, say, an arterial road, it's locked down for the next 3 or 5 years. So we're looking to try and drive that integration. And in a couple of weeks, as a very practical working example, we're meeting with Watercare so that we can have their program. They're looking at ours. We do a lot more than what they do. Can they fold theirs in under ours and do it at the same time? It's one set of cones, one set of disruption, and far more efficiently delivered of benefit to both organisations. A lot of focus on that.
Thank you. That's great. Now, we've got time for then just one further one following the Mayor. That's the Deputy Mayor wants a question. Can we have quick questions and quick answers?
Quick question. As a happy user of the Outer Link, it's come to my attention that some smart, young, clever people have now got a little ability on their phone to just make a noise like my hop card does. Is there some way of, and then they hop off and everyone thinks they've paid, but they haven't actually. is there some sort of way that we can alert that that's not actually linked to what's happening?
Questions around fare evasion?
Short answer
I
is
met the
yes.
young person.
Yeah, and we're onto it. We're aware. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, just my one is on safety. I really like your 8 coordinated approach. Just on the buttons that the drivers can use, do they, I don't know where the cameras are, do they look at the bus shelters or the bus stations as well? Or they just look inside the bus?
No, outside the bus as well.
As well, that's great. Yeah.
And there are also buttons at the bus station that you can press if there's an issue.
Okay, that concludes the questions. I'd ask you to step away now. Thank you very much for your presentation and responding to the questions. I'm going to move that we accept the 25 wrap-up report. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you. Mayor Brown, it is now open for discussion. Do we have anyone wishing to speak? Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, look, I don't want to give a campaign speech here, but I do just have to raise 62,479 unique hot cards benefited from free trips for the weekly fare cab. It's something that I'm so proud of that this council implemented in this term. It has made a difference for huge numbers of Aucklanders. And, you know, I think maybe we should be lowering that fare cap. So we've got a fare review coming up in February. I would encourage the new council, whoever is here, to really have a look at that because it makes a big difference in terms of people's costs. It helps with congestion and it helps with our carbon emissions. So it's a great thing to do and we should further do it further. Thank you, Chair. That was all.
Thank you very much. There are no further speakers. I'm going to put it. All those in favour say aye. To the contrary, say no. That is the conclusion of that item. We're going to take a half an hour break and we will resume at what are we up to? 2:45. Thank you.